No use resisting. Abandon thought and let the dream descend. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode. Welcome to the recording of your Lord, your Master, your Savior. Meanwhile, I'm so to be with you, all of you here again today. I'm so happy to be here with all of you who are under duress, maybe locked up in a cellar somewhere, but you have access to my videos. And maybe if you are perhaps trapped by, a persistent lover of a unique kind or brand, I encourage you to watch this video and perhaps you might learn to get out of your situation. Or at least you can find the materials to find out what you need to do to get rid of the person, in a very legal manner. Mind you, I am a professor. So, but yeah, bad take, whatever. I don't know, I don't care. But hello, welcome to the recording. Do not see this. I have mundane contraband. I have your secret elixir. They call it water in this room. But yes, no, I have to, honestly. I had to grab it when I was in the market a while back, and yes, it can be rather hot. But I'm so happy because I feel a surge of inspiration returning once again to me. Thank you very much, book. That's right. There's another one coming out. You didn't know. There's another Hocus Pocus movie coming out, and they're making it a bit more. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I guess more. I don't even know what to call it. Obviously, the effects are going to be a lot greater. It's not going to be as campy or as comical as, I guess, charming as the older one. It's going to have the same actresses that played the witches in the first movie. It's going to be with different people. Apparently, there are these young girls who are dabbling into, sort of entering into witchcraft, that certain type. And they are witches and they want to be witches, things like that. So they sort of found this tome. I guess they found the witch's book or whatever. And I guess we're learning magic from it because they really want to be able to use magic and they want to be witches. It's in them or something like that, something innate. And so these young, up and coming witches, practicing witches, they, unbeknownst to them, end up, I think, summoning the sisters back, even though I thought we'd seen the last of them in the first movie. But apparently there's more than one way for them to come back. So that's very interesting. Well, I guess because, they made it the candle thing beforehand, but if someone's an actual witch with magic, and if the book has, a lot of secrets of the dead or how to bring them back to life, somebody with magical manner like this little girl's possessed could possibly find out some way to find another method of bringing them back from the dead. However, it is a new movie coming out. It's coming out in October, I believe, which honestly it should be. I mean, obviously, why not? But I thought, you know what, if this is the case, it would be a rather good thing because, witchcraft in every movie, in every sort of thing, has been portrayed as something negative, as something dark. And so witchcraft is just it's just a craft. It's what people use and do in order to manipulate the energies within their world, in order to conjure, use magic. So I thought it was rather interesting that they're sort of going that route. But I wonder if it's going to be something a bit more serious, or if it's going to be a blend of, suspense, mystery. If they're going to make it a bit more, it's still family friendly, obviously. If it's going to have campy moments in it or whatever. But it is something that I am sort of, interested in. So when it comes out, I do plan on watching it because honestly, it's been decades since the first movie. Everyone loves watching it. It is a Halloween favorite. You have Bette Midler, you have Sarah Jessica Parker, you have this other lady, I can't remember her name. And they are, these stars playing witches and things like that. But obviously they play the, the bad ones, the ones that do all this, dark, evil shit that don't really care much for human life. They manipulate it, they absorb children, all these things. Which is what witches were known for doing, and they actually did do those things. But I believe if they could sort of do this movie in a way where it portrays, I believe, the act of witchcraft in a positive light, it is simply a working that you do to enact the magic. Doing things like praying, for example, fasting, or anything else like that is religious is a type of witchcraft, but it's not considered or labeled that because, the word itself has a sort of negative connotation. But I thought it was rather interesting. So apparently, from what I've seen, it's going to be a sort of, good witch versus bad witch situation. It's going to be something where, it's going to be, good magic versus dark magic, things of that nature. So I am rather interested in this movie. It sort of piqued my interest. So, yes. So, that was not the focus for today. There was something else I was going to do, and I believe I'll look at something beforehand. I thought I had it on me or something of that nature. Apparently, I guess I'm a bit remiss. I'm not sure what is happening, what is going on. But I'm trying to think about what I was going for. But I was going to give you a quick recap of things of that nature. Doing the new, portal work that I'm doing. I'm seeing a lot of people pass in and out of these portals on a daily basis. And to attend to their needs, to help them out, direct them to where they need to go, which portals they're supposed to open, which lines they're supposed to stand on, what components they're supposed to use, if they need to summon a portal, all these things. And many times it can be a little bit frustrating with some people that are a bit too demanding or too just dim-witted or stubborn or pretending that they can't hear you. It's absolutely stupid. But other times it's fine. You have young kids, budding mages, still in their infancy, so to speak, children that are, up and coming in the world and sort of learning these things that are very polite. It's a very welcome sight. There's nothing more nice or, I believe, pure than seeing a nice child who is, humble, who is a nice, it's not super, over dramatic like a lot of these kids are today. Not super prideful, just, a regular child, someone that is, on wonder, that they seem very nice, that they know their manners and everything else, and you get a good vibe. I had one several weeks ago. It was a young boy. I was at the portals, and he sort of, was asking me questions. And so I could feel the energy that this boy was giving off, the manner. It was something very pure, very wondrous, very respectful to my own energy. And so I was rather fond of him. I was like, oh, that's a very nice boy. And so, of course, I tended to him and his family, and it was a nice experience, So there's things like that. But, it's like I said in the last video, when it comes to things like, having your own manosphere, as it were, these sort of things can sort of, collide if you're not too expected. Not many people give off something in a mundane realm. You rarely get anything like that. But other times, you sort of feed off of this. Some people sort of give off this energy. It's their EMF or their manosphere colliding with yours, and so your atmosphere, your environment is being invaded by their energy. So the best way to do it is to reinforce yourself, to fight back in some, obviously not confrontational, not physical, or not obvious way. To just do so in things that is rather worthy and things of that nature. So let me see here in my book. Enough of this drawl. I've been bickering long enough about it. Now I had in mind to talk about a few subjects here. I wanted to talk about something that was what's it called? Something a bit important when it comes to things like magic or things like safety, things like theories of that nature. I had the idea in mind. Obviously, it's leaving me. I'm looking through the book here, if I can remember the inspiration that I attained. That's why I got it. Thank you very much, book. I appreciate your help and your assistance. You inspired me. So, and you're way better than what from Hocus Pocus. You're not nearly as, dramatic or, as dark or grimoire-like. But I like you. You're sort of, mysterious, regal, a little bit dark. I love those things about you. I appreciate your help. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about catalysts. Yes. So catalysts, and I don't believe I've spoken too much on it before. I've mentioned some things. But a catalyst is essentially a type of object or something that is used to help channel your energy and help you manifest it in the physical realm. For some people, a catalyst can be like this book. Other people, it can be like this skull. It can be this boat, this chest, this crown, this time glass, this thing you can't see in the corner. Or it could be anything. A catalyst is simply something that is meant to provide you the anchor for the energies you are manipulating. That is why in a lot of, wizards, games, or concepts, they have things like staves or wands. Even things like chakrams, it's not too much known. These are essentially objects that have been imbued with the natural or perhaps unnatural energies available in the realm, in the world. And they are of materials made that are capable of absorbing, channeling, and projecting that same energy into the outside world that you're in. Now, the thing is, the reason why catalysts are used, they are mostly foremost used as a safety measure. And I know I spoke about this, oh my God, it feels like eons ago, perhaps in my first couple of videos, when I talked about things like wands, chakram, staves, or things of that nature. But a catalyst can even be a person, somebody that is, a well of magical energy and mana that you need to use in order to properly, practice your magic and, attain the desired results. So when it comes to things like catalysts, many people obviously know things like walls or, stabs or whatever. But like I said before, it can be any object. Now, the thing is, what's interesting is that not too many people discuss about the attunement when it comes to these objects or to these catalysts. And I believe I've also mentioned something about attunement before. It is sort of like how, you need to get used to something, or how a certain person is, like a person that's in sports or whatever, is trying to find the right pair of shoes that feels right for them, Or perhaps if you're trying to buy a new pair of shoes, you're sort of breaking them in. By doing this, you're sort of allowing the shoe to sort of shape itself, to attune itself to your foot shape, your foot size. And so in this process and during this time, the object that the person is using that is allowing them to use or to perhaps manipulate their bodies, or perhaps any energy they're using in a more desirable sense, is, sort of becoming one, is attuning to their person. And so it's important that you do this. It's like this with certain books. It is why we have certain attachment to certain objects, how certain objects can give us, positive side effects, or perhaps, positive, energies or things of that nature. It is sort of a reaction you have whenever you interact with an object that you find pleasing to your eye or something else. Sometimes these are objects that attract our spiritual essence, our energies, and it's something that either reflects it or is something that is capable of absorbing those same energies that you could then use out into the world. There's a lot of witches and practicing mages at this time that are, using things like catalysts. A lot of them are known for using things like wands. A lot of Wiccans use things like wands. Something that's natural, something that fell from a tree of a branch that they then, use, they carve it to, their own specifications. And so during this time, they go through a process. I'm not speaking about just, Wiccans specifically. I'm not an expert on Wiccans or anything like that. If I have one on the show, I'll let you know about it. But, when it comes to things like attunement, and it happens with things like music, guitars, or string, or anything like that, you're slowly manipulating the strings on a guitar, tightening them, loosening them, even the things on a keys on a piano. You're doing all of these things to sort of attune them to what you want, attune them to how you feel. Things like weighted keys, things like light keys, for example. Sometimes a guitar string is stronger than what normal, or maybe the guitar itself has a warm sound, a cooler sound. Things like recorders or flutes, like things like that I play, they have different sort of warmths, and some of them can even be, carved or shaped according to your own capacity for breath. According to your own, the way you breathe, you sort of help attuning it through this process to better, acclimate to your atmosphere, to your environment, to your inner environment, to your manner. And so when it comes to things like catalysts, a lot of people perhaps don't think of these sort of things. But even a phone can be a catalyst. It is something that is, specifically attuned to whatever you like. And obviously there's exceptions to the rule, as there are even in my realm when it comes to things like magic or things like catalysts. But it is important to denote that a catalyst, though it can attune to its user, if it is not the right type of catalyst, or perhaps it's not, in the right, I believe, and this is theoretical in my community, we call it, I think, the zone or the spectrum of mana. And so there's different types of mana, or things like different types of elements, as you understand. And so each person that is born is a sort of born within this spectrum, and is sort of, more attuned to this type of magic or this type of mana. It is a sort of natural disposition that you're sort of born with. It is a huge, controversy in our circles, because it sort of, takes the choice out of certain things, but there is some inherent truth to it. For example, if you have, parents who are both of, a primary type of mana or magic of within the spectrum, the child that is then born is one that's going to inherit that aspect. And so it's sort of concentrated or amplified, if the parents were particularly strong in that mana, or they both have the same identical type of mana. And there are many different types, things that sort of attune to different types of elements. But mana is a little bit different. Mana is sort of a more innate effect, or sort of an innate response, an innate gift that a person has, for certain things. That's why you have certain people that have a knack for music, have a knack for numbers, have a knack for sports. Whenever a mage has a specific knack in a certain area, it is believed and it is supported in some circles, even backed by some research, that they are attuned to a specific wavelength, if you want to think about it in those terms, within the mana spectrum. And so they're going to be more proficient in that type of mana. They're going to be stronger in that type of mana. And the type of magic that they use that is fueled by that mana is going to be a lot more stronger than not. And then you have some people that are, like myself, are born within the middle, sort of, that are wide-reaching scope. We sort of call them the arbors, or I believe the trees or something, something that branches out to different sources, Even though a tree has a primary source, which is the sunlight, it also provides darkness underneath, which we'll talk about in a different video. But the tree itself, finds nourishment within the earth. Different elements affect and help the tree grow. Things like water, things like sunlight, even things like shade, so the sun doesn't burn it. Even things like dirt, the earth. The tree is a perfect catalyst. Why? Because it is able to absorb, and it is imbued with many different types of elements, and it's exposed to the elements all the time, on a daily basis. That's why a lot of wands are used from trees, or staves are used from wood, because wood is a type of element that has been exposed to different types of elements, and it is one that is inherently gifted in mana absorbency and mana projection. So that's why a tree or things like wood is a brilliant catalyst to use, because a tree in itself is in the middle and it's sort of, able to, receive all types of mana. But here's the interesting part about the mana sphere, which sort of, makes more sense when you're talking about the spectrum. The spectrum, as we understand it in magic, is not a straight line, as you understand it in your realm, like things like the light spectrum or things of that nature. It is actually like a ring, like a halo or a circle. And the individuals are either put within the middle, like myself, somewhere, sometimes leaning to two or more, or some are put it on the ring itself. And so if you think about the circle, or I believe a sphere, it's a complete ball and the person is in the center. But if you think about a circle in a more simplistic sense, the circle itself can have sort of quadrants, or it can have, and each quadrant can have a base of magic, or I believe elemental magic, if you want to understand it that way. When there are two halves within that one, they are sort of branches of the primary source of magic or element within that nature. So, for example, the element of fire, its mana element would be, something like fire, or it could be something like light, So, fire and light tend to coexist in the same thing, but it's part of the general thing of fire. So you have the elemental things like fire, things like light, even things like lightning is perhaps a different branch of the fire quadrant. When you think of something like water, it doesn't only persist to water. It's sort of any type of liquid you can use. Even things like poison can be a delineation of water, even though something a bit more hazardous, and it falls along the darker aspect of the ring itself, dark and light. It is something that's within that quadrant, just anything you can think of. And things like earth, because earth is very varied. You have things like crystals, you have things like diamonds. Any and every type of earth is within the earth quadrant, Then you have things like air, things that are, can be used or manipulated by air itself, Things like spirit magic is sort of, involved with things like air because it's unseen, and things like magic manipulation or mana manipulation, so as an example, so people that sort of align themselves within that sort of sphere or within that circle of the mana spectrum or the magic spectrum, find themselves either within those quadrants or perhaps in the center, And so when you're in the center, you can either lean more towards one quadrant or the other. It is extremely rare that someone is born dead center. Those are the people that tend to be, elected as the highest officials within our mage hierarchy. And those are people that have access to all the types of magics. However, in order for there to be a balance, they can choosing sort of, focus more or adapt their mana to, I believe, identify or use one type of branch of that magic a lot more and become more proficient in that. They can be proficient in all types of magic, but to be proficient in all types of magic advancedly and greatly is an incredibly, nearly impossible task. You'd have to be a freak of nature, even among the mage community, in order to have access to that sort of power. Because people, most often, if you think about that circle, and people don't always agree with it, it's just a basic graph they teach you in the academia, in our mage, in the magisterium, in our mage schools. You have the circle of mana, I believe the circle of magic, and it's a spectrum around it. So think about a rainbow bridge around the entire thing of magic. Each color is an expression of mana, and within the circle itself, you have inherently the four quadrants, the basic forms and expressions of mana. And then each quadrants have their own spectrums that they associate with. However, the wheel is always turning. So the expression can sort of change, but the quadrants remain fixed. So a person that's born within those quadrants are people that are of that quadrant. However, as the wheel turns, they can find different expressions of that element or of that quadrant. That is why we use the tree analogy, or the tree of life, for example, Yggdrasil, as people know it in Norse mythology, or the world tree, or the tree of life, or whatever. It is a tree that connects different realms together in the center. And it is how you're able to branch or to reach these different universes all together. In magic or in mana, it's of a similar nature. Because the tree is used as a symbol, because it is a catalyst of all the energies that the world has to offer. Because it can absorb and it can thrive in different situations. There are, of course, exceptions to the rule, but even a dead tree is still standing. And it sort of adapts itself to its environment in order to still be there, become shelter for everything else. Sometimes it's dead. But the elements are there in some cases. But like normally speaking, a tree in a healthy environment, or an environment that is, constantly, a flux, but it has, its elements there. Like I said, they're able to absorb sunlight. They are part of the earth. They also grow well during nighttime, like some plants do better in the shade. And, and they provide, things like wood and things to use. They can grow themselves if things get cut off or detached. And so it is similar when it comes to a magical practice and within the wheel of the spectrum. In the next video, I should definitely bring to you the graph that we have for this. I have to obviously draw it out for you because I don't have anything on my person. But it's a rather unique and rather interesting concept to think about. I think the closest thing you could find to it, believe it or not, is known as a circle of fifths in music theory. For the musicians who are familiar with this, the circle of fifths essentially has all the notes that they know of, that they are aware of, in a circle, and it's a certain number. I believe there are 8 or perhaps more. You have a circle of fifths there, and so you have, for example, you have A, you have A flat, B, whatever, and as it gets about to half, it turns into sharps, but it still has the other things that overlap. And so within the inside, you have a different expression of those numbers, of the letters within inside the circle, and they correspond to the ring on the outside. It is a very abstract comparison, trust me. But if you look up the circle of fifths in music theory, which I also did a long time ago, but it's been a long time, I don't even remember what the damn thing looks like anymore, to a certain extent, as to how to make it. But it is sort of close to what I'm talking about. Now, just imagine a tree within the center of the circle of fifths or whatever. That's the most closest thing that I can think of when you're trying to think like magic. When you think about music, the different notes on a guitar or on piano can indicate different types of magic, or I believe mana expressions. The flats are different branches of that same expression. An A flat is a part of A, as is an A sharp. However, the A sharp is a different branch, or I believe a different expression of the note of A. And it is the sound that helps you understand that it is part of A, but it is a sharper A, a higher A, versus an A flat, which is a lower A, traditionally speaking. And you have things like chords, which are a combination of different types of elements or mana expressions, but they all belong to one base form of mana or magic, which is A. The A chord, for example, the A minor chord would be A, C, E. That's an A minor chord, if I remember correctly. An A major chord would be A sharp, and then E at the end. No, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, A sharp, because A sharp is also B flat, and then it's something like that. I'm trying to remember. But so it is something like that when you think about it. Now, I know this whole spectrum sort of came out of the corner, but when it comes to things like catalysts, people usually always select the catalyst, or the catalyst chooses them, or whatever, because it attunes to yourself, to the spectrum that you're within. That is why, for example, in Harry Potter, you couldn't just use any kind of wand. Because Harry Potter, though he was selecting a type of wand from a branch of a tree, his branch was different from a different branch of the same tree. It wasn't exactly the same. They didn't really exactly fit. So he had to keep selecting wands, touching wands, to see which one sort of, fit his personality better, fit his person better. Something that his body was able to attune to. which is also, again, why I brought up the whole thing with music analogy, with things like instruments or things like wearing shoes or things like jackets. And you put on a jacket, it looks good on you, but it doesn't really exactly feel right. You put on a pair of pants, you look good in them, but it doesn't exactly feel right. The same thing with shoes, the same thing with hats, the same thing with masks. It's a lot of things that, you have to sort of adjust yourself to in order to understand perfectly what attuning is when it comes to things like a catalyst. So a catalyst can have negative effects on its user. If it's one that sort of the user is sort of, forcing themselves on, they can use a catalyst, but it's going to be very difficult for them to have things go smoothly. A lot of times people even align themselves with certain belief systems that are of a different type of catalyst, different types of faiths or books or anything you use, could sort of be throwing off your rhythm, throwing off your mana, throwing off your focus, your circle, your manosphere. And so these different type of catalysts you have to understand are, they are different branches of a single tree with different types of mana expressions of, things of that nature. Things like dark, light, all this to sort of affect the catalyst. So when you are trying to select a catalyst for yourself, you have to, one, understand what type of thing you want to use, what sort of element you're sort of specialized in. If the catalyst is, friendly with that element, that's going to be a factor. If it is not, you might want to avoid using that catalyst if you plan on using that type of magic, or avoid using any type of magic if you're tuned to that catalyst with that catalyst. Okay? You don't want to have this sort of, you don't want to cross the streams like in Ghostbusters. That could be a disaster. You have to keep that certain thing in mind. So when it comes to that catalyst, some catalysts are essentially open. That's how they sort of make them nowadays. Just so that there's no feedback, because before we had issues, a long time ago where, kids would have burned hands, deformed fingers, because they picked up the wrong catalyst, or they were tuning themselves to something that was of a different expression or mana expression than what was innate to them. Sort of trying to make a gay person straight is sort of conflicting there, or trying to make, a white person black or black person white, or it's not really going to happen. There's something innate in that person that makes them of that certain type, You can respect and appreciate the different mana expressions, different forms, but you have to understand that there's something within you that sort of, still creates that separation. Not like it's a bad thing. Some things are there for that reason. Some things mana manipulates because it has to attune itself to it in order for it to survive within the world. So, the concept of things like races, though it's very loose, comparison or anything else, you can think of it as things like a mana expression, That's why we're all different with different forms of mana, different forms of spirits. But mana, like I said, of the elements before, are not enemies or antagonists or sort of, what's the right word? Antagonists, I'm going to use adversaries to different forms of mana, whatever. Sure, you get something where, light and dark are inherently opposites, but this is theoretically speaking, I can understand that viewpoint, but it is inherently wrong. When it comes to things like light or dark is simply the absence of light. And light is simply, the sort of absence of dark, sort of, So, you have one that sort of comes from the other in a certain way, or it has meaning because the other exists, We have things like fire and water, natural opposites, because one can put one out or whatever. But sometimes fire can heat water, water can cool down a fire, or, things of that nature. What I'm trying to get at is that all these things are within the same scope, within the same sphere. They can be used interchangeably. They can cancel each other out, but it doesn't mean that they are inherently opposites. You can knock out your sibling. You can even kill your sibling, but it doesn't change the fact that you are siblings. When you think about your world or the earth that you are in, all these elements sort of work together in a harmony because they are familial in their ties to mana. They all have a connection to mana. If they have a connection to mana, period, it means that they are related. Mana is the parent in that factor. Everything else that is using mana or that comes from mana is a child, which makes them siblings, brother, sister, whatever it is. So with magic, it's the same concept. But without further more delay, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I do apologize if I sort of went on a strange tangent and if it sort of wasn't clear. Like I said, I had the idea in mind. I wanted to make sure I was explaining catalysts. If I need to, I will do a second video just to make sure you all understand what I'm talking about. But if you dare have a general grasp And if perhaps you're a practitioner of something, have some certain questions, I'm always available and happy to discuss these certain types of things with you. I love talking about the theories of things like magic or mana because it helps you think about what you're actually doing, how you're using the energies within your realm, whether or not something is considered real or magic at all, and what the effects are within your realm, within a different realm, because sometimes what you do here can affect another one. I hope all of you are practicing in safety, whether it is magic or sex. Make sure that you are studying profusely. Make sure that you are, consistent in your workings and in your personality. Remember that there are people out there that are in need, but never put yourself last. Always put yourself first, but consider others before yourself. Okay. Make sure you keep yourself light, that you're using the right type of elements, materials, components. Make sure you are doing your research into whatever you're going to use for your craft or even for your theories. If you have a book of any kind, I recommend something that you attune yourself to, that sort of has your essence within it, your energies, your focus, your intentions, something that sort of speaks to you as a person and other people can sort of get a general vibe from. Make sure you're using the right type of pen on the right type of paper, because sometimes some paper, believe it or not, they don't tell you this, is flammable with certain types of inks, because the magical inks you use could be derived from different types of creatures or different types of elements that sort of cause a chain reaction that can cause your grandma to explode, and you don't want that. You lose all your research. It's happened to me twice. I was so pissed about it. Oh my God. I spent working and working and working. Someone lends me their pen, their quill one time, and the whole goddamn book goes up in flames. I was so pissed about it. It was insane. The second time it happened to me, it was something that I had, and I was like, okay. And so I went for something to reach for it, and I put it on my paper thinking everything was legit, everything was fine, and no, the same damn thing happened again. So I had to go back to the drawing board, had to redo all the shit. It was annoying as hell, and I don't want to be part of it. But I digress. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful you. Remember to put yourself first. Enjoy your time, your day. And remember that when it comes to catalyst, do not put it in your ass. Ever, okay? Hands, feet, and everything else, just don't stick it up there, Alright?